Hello guys, how are we all doing? Welcome back to yet another video. Today we are back with championship content and deadline day has been and gone. So I'm going to stop and rank all of the championship teams on their January transfer business. If you're new to the channel, do make sure to drop a like and subscribe. And if you feel like I've put your team in a position you don't agree with, let me know down in the comments. You probably know your team better than me. Let's go through this in alphabetical order. So then first up, our Barnsley Football Club. Not all too much business. Bassi came in, a couple of players went out. I think they might know the writing's on the wall and they've not gone all out in January to try and save themselves this season, which might be the smartest thing to do. But I look at Barnsley at the end of this transfer window, they don't look particularly strong. I'm going to put them straight up in poor. Next up are Birmingham City, and I've got to say I like their business. Look at some of the players they signed. Lyle Taylor, Ono Hernandez, Bakuna. A couple of players went out as well, so Birmingham City were definitely busier than the likes of Barnsley, for example. It's tricky with Birmingham City. I might put them in good. Like I say, a couple of good players came in. There's a couple of good ones that went out as well. Let's put Birmingham City in good and see if the Birmingham fans agree with that. Next up are Blackburn Rovers, and this is an interesting one. Obviously, Hedges came in. Giles, very good player, good for assists. And I think the other way you've got to look at this is good retainment from Blackburn Rovers. They didn't let Ben Brereton Diaz go out, any of their other really good players. They really kept a good squad. And I think the way you've got to look at this as well is how does their team and squad look at the end of this transfer window? And it looks strong. There's goals. And like I say, with Ryan Giles, that's a good signing. Hedges isn't bad as well. I think I'm going to put Blackburn straight up in class. Sometimes it's not just about signing, it's about retaining. And I think Blackburn fans will be pretty happy. It gives them a really good chance at getting up this season. Next up, we come across Blackpool Football Club, a newly promoted team this season. Obviously doing very, very well in the table for a newly promoted team. The best out of the three that came up. And you look at their January business, they brought in the likes of Beasley, Dale, Charlie Kirk. I don't think that's bad business. Not too many players going out for Blackpool either. I think it's actually quite good for a newly promoted team. Remember, you've got to look at these clubs for what they are. Blackpool aren't exactly Fulham, are they? Although they did draw with them at the weekend. Fair play to Blackpool. So for a team that is building and establishing themselves in the Championship, I think they'd be pretty happy with that. Shrewd business. I'd say it's slightly better than steady. I'm actually going to say Blackpool, good business. Next up, Bristol City. Not all too much business. Backinson went out on loan. They've brought in Tim Close. You've probably got to say steady for Bristol City. I think you look at their squad, it's not really got much stronger or weaker through this transfer window. The position they're in the table, I don't think they're going down. They're not really punching their way towards the top 12 because they're not being consistent, but they've got an alright squad, haven't they? If they could just get the best out of them, they could be alright. I'd say it's been a steady window for them. Next up, AFC Bournemouth. I don't think anyone's going to disagree with me putting AFC Bournemouth in class. And I tell you what, because I put Blackburn in there as well, that makes for a very exciting top two race come the end of the season because Blackburn have held on to some good players and Bournemouth have brought in some good players. You've got Todd Cantwell, Dembele, Kiefer Moore. You could go on. The amount of quality that AFC Bournemouth have brought in on deadline day as well was sensational. Obviously, they've still got a good squad as it was. Steve Cook went out, but so much quality and so much attacking intent in that team. I think Bournemouth, they've given themselves a really strong chance at getting automatic promotion. I think it might take a little bit of time for things to gel. It always does, but if they can get things firing on all cylinders, Bournemouth look very strong now. Next up, Cardiff City. Very interesting one. Ikpeazu and Hugill coming in. Obviously, Kiefer Moore going out. It's sort of a bit of business, but good players in, good players out. Does that mean steady or good? I think Cardiff City, we've already saw Jordan Hugill score in his debut against Forest, so they could turn out to be good signings for them, Cardiff City, the likes of Hugill and Ikpeazu in particular. I might just put Cardiff City in steady though. It's been some good signings, but should we go good? No, we'll go steady. We'll go steady. Let me know if you agree, Cardiff fans. Next up, my team, Coventry City. We should have another tier. Very, very, very steady. It has to be steady for Coventry City. Not too much going on in our January transfer window. I didn't think anything really would. Mark Robbins and Sisu and everything. We don't have a massive budget, so I didn't expect us to splash a load of money. What's quite good, actually, is who we've retained. We've only let players that weren't getting into the squad go out, and most of them on loans as well. We have brought in Bidwell, who looks to be a pretty decent defensive fullback, so I'm actually pretty happy. Some Coventry fans might say good, some might say because we haven't signed anyone poor, but I think that's a bit unrealistic. With Coventry City, it's pretty steady. Next up, Derby County. This is always going to be a tricky one. Obviously, no one coming in. Jagielka, Shinnie, Baldock all out. Plange has obviously gone to Palace, but I think he's back on a loan. So, I'm sorry, Derby. I think we all knew this would be inevitable. I'm going to put you in poor. You didn't really have a choice, not really being able to bring in any players. But they've still, if you can try and put a positive spin on it, they've still got some good players. And I still think there's a way in which they survive. But it hasn't helped this transfer window. Next up's Fulham Football Club. And it's a funny one, actually, because barely any players coming in. You'd imagine that if Fulham weren't in that top two, you'd be saying this is very poor because they need to sign to bring players in to climb the table. But because they're already top of the league, and I don't think too many of us think they're really going to fall away, it's not really that bad. I think you'd say it's steady. You've obviously seen Sessegnon and Christie going out. I suppose what's good is they've retained some good players. So I'm going to put Fulham in steady. I think realistically, this transfer window isn't going to have all too much effect on Fulham's momentum at the moment. Next up, Huddersfield Town. This is an interesting one. I don't think their business has been too bad. They've obviously brought in Jamal Blackman. We touched on that yesterday. They brought in Tino Anjorin. He could be a decent player. Looking at the players they've got after this transfer window, you know what? The word I might use is underrated. It's not a bad transfer window for Huddersfield Town. You look at the position they're in the league as well. They're going to come out of this strong and who knows? It could be a really exciting 2022 for them. I'm going to say good because I think some of those signings are underrated. Next up, Hull City. They were actually quite busy on deadline day, weren't they? One of the players that really stands out to me is Liam Walsh. I remember him playing for Coventry when we won League One, and he is a very, very good player. Didn't really get too much game time for Swansea or Bristol City. Who else have they brought in? They brought in Longman, Syed Manash. Very decent business, once again, for a newly promoted team. Should we go good or class? I might go class because, remember, they're a team that have just come up. They're reasonably safe at the moment. Not bad business from Hull City. I think they will go on to survive and could be some decent players coming in for them. Next up, Luton Town, another pretty quiet club through this window. And I think on a level with Coventry in terms of steady. Sluga went out, but Jed Steer came in. Not all too bad for Luton Town, to be honest. I think, realistically, Luton fans would agree with me in putting them in steady. Next up, Middlesbrough Football Club. We touched on this yesterday in the video, but their business has been fantastic. Let's list some of them. Aaron Connolly, Riley McGree, following Balogun. Some really good business from Middlesbrough. Yeah, a fair few going out at the same time, but I look at them and think Chris Wilder's done a good job through this transfer window. He's probably removed a bit of dead wood at the same time, and yeah, you've got to consider the position they're in. Pretty good squad at the end of this transfer window. Really could make the playoffs, so I'm going to put them in class. Next up are Millwall, and this might be harsh, but they brought in Oliver Burke, a few players going out, Smith, Bodvarsson, Thompson. I don't think it's actually a great transfer window at all for Millwall. I'm going to put them in poor. I don't think their squad's necessarily got stronger. If anything, it could have got weaker. I don't know. Any Millwall fans, do you agree? I'm going to slide you in poor. Not the best window for them. Next up, Nottingham Forest. Really good signings for them. Steve Cook, Keenan Davis, Sam Surridge. Pretty good business for Nottingham Forest, to be honest. I'm going to put them in the same boat as Middlesbrough. I think they'd say it's pretty class, to be fair. Any Forest fans watching, do you agree? I think coming out of this window, they've got a good squad. They're in a good position in the league, good manager. And I think he's the kind of manager that will make them gel quite quickly. There won't be a hangover of all these players need to gel over time. I think Forest will carry on their good momentum, and yeah, they look like a good team for a top 6 battle. Next up, Peterborough United, quite a bit of business. The ones I want to focus on are the players going out, actually. Siriki Dembele, Christy Pym, Kanu. I don't think Peterborough have come out of this much stronger at all. Once again, I might say they've actually come out of this weaker. I don't think it gives them a very good chance. I think I look at Barnsley and I think fair enough if they're not going to go all out for this transfer window because they're quite cut adrift. But if Peterborough had really put a bit more into this transfer window, they could have had a good chance of staying up this season. I don't think this has given them much of a chance now. I could be proved wrong, but I'm going to say it's a poor window for Peterborough United. Next up, Preston North End. Not too bad. I might go steady again. Diaby, Archer. Not too bad for Preston North End. Pretty standard transfer window for them. Any Preston fans watching, would you agree with that? There's quite a few clubs in steady. It'll probably have the most clubs by the end of this because there's some clubs that have just brought in a couple, let a couple go, and I think Preston kind of fit in that bracket. Next up, Queen's Park Rangers. Quite a bit of movement. I like the players they've signed. They've obviously got Marshall, Sanderson, Hendrick. Not bad at all for Queen's Park Rangers. A few going out at the same time, but I think QPR, I won't put them in class, but I'm going to put them in good. Any QPR fans watching, please do give me your thoughts down below. I think I look at their squad as well after this and think it's maybe got a little bit better after this transfer window, but not massively better. Obviously, they did have a lot of quality there already. I suppose they've retained quite a bit of quality, which is a good way of looking at it as well. So QPR, look pretty strong, don't they? Next up, Reading Football Club. I'm kind of torn between steady and poor. They've retained a couple of players, John Swift being one of them. Not too much coming in, obviously. Andy Carroll going out. Do you know what? I think because they've held on to a couple of players, I might be nice to Reading for once and put them in steady. Not exactly strong in any way, shape or form, but steady-ish. Next up, Stoke City. Got to say, I do like the business they've done, actually. I'm going to put them in class. I like the players they've signed. Let's list a couple of them. Jagielka, Lewis Baker, Harwood Bellis, Madja, Philogene Badace. I've actually mastered his name now. Let's go for class for Stoke City because I think the players they've brought in are actually really, really decent. A couple are going out at the same time, but I think the ins are much better than the outs. They outweigh them. Next up are Sheffield United. It's better than steady, but I don't know if it's class. Let's look at who they've signed. Jebison, Davis, Charlie Good, actually. Not bad at all. Pretty balanced squad. Underrated as well. I'll go Good. Charlie Good. Next up, Swansea City. Now this one I'm torn between good and steady. Let's look at who they've brought in. Ogbeta, Christie, Fisher. They retained Patterson, actually. There was a bit of interest in him. So, based on that, they've kept a couple of their good players. I might say good for Swansea City. I think they'll look at this and say good. Russell Martin will obviously implement his new style of play on these new players coming in. I think if Swansea could just hit a bit of form, get a bit of momentum going, they could still have a very good end to this season because I looked at their squad coming into this video and I thought, it's a pretty strong core, isn't it? And then last up, you've got West Bromwich Albion. Obviously, DK came in, Andy Carroll came in, Hugill went out. And to be honest, Hugill wasn't really doing anything for West Brom, so I don't think they're going to miss him. It's about if they can get the best out of DK and Carroll. Obviously, there's a lot of focus at the moment on off the field as well, with West Bromwich Albion's form being poor. They might look at replacing the manager soon. It's kind of a weird time right now. You don't really want that when there's a transfer window because it's like a missed opportunity if a new manager comes in and he can't make any signings. So this is tricky for West Bromwich Albion. I'd say it's actually a good window for them, but they need to improve things on the pitch because they might be replacing the manager soon otherwise. So then, guys, that wraps up my ranking of the Championship club's transfer business for January 2022. Let me know your thoughts down below. It's really tricky to do this. Had to do a bit of research. I feel like I was pretty fair with most clubs. Let me know if you disagree down below. Smash a like if you haven't already. Do subscribe to the channel if you are new. And we'll see you in the next video. Peace out.